We are nearing the halfway point in the Alberta election campaign, but it has been hard for many people to focus on politics right now, given the more pressing concern of wildfires burning in the province. Now, there has been some grumblings that voting day should be pushed back, but for now, May 29 is still voting day in Alberta, which means the campaigns are still moving forward, though perhaps differently than originally planned. To check in on the Alberta campaign, we're now joined by Janet Brown, pollster and principal at Janet Brown Opinion Research. Janet, really good to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, here we are about 2 weeks into this 4-week campaign, but topping the news in Alberta, as I said, are the wildfires, understandably, and not the election. So I'm wondering, have the wildfires affected the kind of attention the provincial campaign would usually be getting right now?
Well, I think definitely the fires are the top news story, and not to minimize them at all, but they're in a specific part of the province. So, the vast number of voters are not directly affected by it. So, yes, it sort of made the election situation a little bit unique. But the election is still going forward full steam, I would say. Mm-hmm.
But still, the wildfires, I guess, from a political front, they have afforded Danielle Smith this opportunity to show leadership in action. Has that helped the UCP leader?
Well, yes, so she has been able to show herself in action. She has been able to show herself in a positive light. But I think for most Albertans, the fire response really is something that they see the government as being responsible for. So, it's not the premier who's going out there and fighting these fires. It's firefighters. It's the administration. It's emergency preparedness services that are really kicking into gear here. And the premier has a role to play for sure, but she's a figurehead role. And so I think a lot of people aren't asking themselves whether the premier's doing a good job. They're asking themselves whether the government's doing a good job. Was this government prepared? Was some of the decisions this government made in the past around funding and that sort of stuff, are those things helping or hurting right now? But I think in terms of people saying, oh, look how great she's doing with the fire, I don't think that in itself is going to change too many votes because when these things happen, it's the entire government that kicks into gear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And add to that, I guess, if we're talking about leadership here, is that old video of Danielle Smith resurfacing this week, comparing vaccinated people to Germans who supported Hitler. And it does make me wonder about leadership and just how much of this election boils down to that one issue.
Well, these were shocking comments that she made, and it was only a couple years ago. It was 2021, so to make it seem like ancient history, it's not exactly that. She said disparaging things about people who went out and got vaccinated, which represents 70 to 80% of Albertans. She said that she was not going to wear the poppy, and a lot of people are upset that she politicized the poppy. So these statements are very troubling to people. But, for the NDP, they've been harping on these things. They've been running sort of an attack ad campaign against Danielle Smith. So these things are hurting Smith, undermining her credibility, undermining her trust. But I think they've also sort of dominated the narrative, and it's prevented the NDP from really sort of putting forth a positive narrative. So you've got a lot of Albertans out there right now who are feeling uncertain about the judgment of Danielle Smith, but not feeling confident enough that they know what the NDP platform holds for them to be able to switch over to the NDP.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned platform, and I do want to talk a bit about Calgary, because we've seen some announcements that would affect Calgary in the future being made this past week. But of course, Calgary identified as the main battleground right now. Just how many seats are actually in play in Calgary? And if you will, put that into some context for people outside of Alberta.
Well, let me back up even further. There's 87 seats provincially. 20 of those seats are in Edmonton, 26 are in Calgary, and the rest, 41, are outside of the two major cities. Now, I would be very shocked if the NDP didn't win every single seat in Edmonton and a number of seats in the surrounding area around Edmonton. I wouldn't be surprised if the UCP won most of the seats outside of the two major cities, maybe with the exception of places like Lethbridge and Banff Kananaskis and that sort of thing. So that's why we talk about this election being battleground Calgary. It's shaping up to be a close election, but only because it's shaping up to be close in Calgary. I did a poll for CBC. That poll was conducted just before Easter. We released it just after Easter, so it's about a month old now. But at that time, I saw the NDP with the lead, and I saw the NDP in a position to probably win, 18 out of the 26 seats in Calgary. But when you do the math, that's not enough. 18 seats in Calgary, 20 seats in Edmonton, that only brings them to 38. You need 44 seats for a majority. You need more like 47, 48 seats for a clear majority. So the NDP has to practically run the board here in Calgary and pick up some other seats outside of the two major cities. And even if they win the popular vote, it's going to be difficult for them to win all the seats they need to form a majority. Okay,
difficult. But what ridings will you be watching out for then, perhaps outside the two big cities where the NDP might be competitive?
Well, outside the major cities, the city of Lethbridge, it's in southern Alberta, which tends to be quite conservative, but Lethbridge is this little bastion of progressivism. So they have an NDP MLA down there now, and it's widely expected, there's two ridings in Lethbridge, it's widely expected that the NDP could get both. In Red Deer, I think the UCP has the advantage, but people are looking to see if the NDP could maybe pick up one seat in Red Deer. In northern Alberta, the riding of Lesser Slave Lake, it has been NDP in the past. It's got a big Indigenous population. People are watching that one. And finally, Banff Kananaskis, a very progressive riding, and that one could be on the ridings to watch as well.
Well, as you say, the elections campaign is still going strong right now. So, Janet, thank you for the update at this point. Happily to say that you and I think are going to speak when we do get to Calgary at the end of the month. But for now, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.